Hello everybody, we are back and we're going to be doing a recap of CFL free agency. Now before we start, I wanted to say please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you're new to the CFL, new to me, whatever the case may be. And I just want to say I also apologize. I know it's been like 15 days since I put out a video. I didn't realize it had been that long. I knew I had vacation coming up for work, thought I had put one out a little bit more recent, and then knew I wasn't going to be posting a lot of videos during the vacation, but here we are. So we're going to be recapping and trying to put out videos a little bit more frequently. And to start off, we have the BC Lions, and in free agency, I think a lot of news was centered around Dominic Grimes, the receiver, and he wanted a trade. I cannot remember if this was the day before free agency or if it was during free agency, but he wanted a trade. He wanted to be out. And then basically, from what I could gather, every other team had spent most of their money and they really couldn't pay him. So then next thing you know, he signed a 2-year extension with the Lions. He had 1,400 yards and he had 11 touchdowns in 2022. Was a big part of this offense. And I would say, as a Lions fan, I really hope that he is going to stay around through the remaining 2 years of his contract. But you never know, because maybe after this year, if things don't work the way he likes, he could want out. And then for a departure, we had James Butler. He ended up leaving to Hamilton. We knew James was likely on his way out. I think he had, during the tampering period, basically was saying that he was going to go to Hamilton. No big deal there. I'm not mad for him as long as he, is happier there, whatever the case may be. Running backs are a position that you can typically replace fairly easily. We'll have to see if missing him will be an issue. But I think for the Lions that I think they did well was get Michael Couture from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, or at least he has played for the Blue Bombers. And he is a guy that is a very experienced center, has played a lot of games for Winnipeg, was injured this past year, but is fairly young-ish. He's 29 right now. And if he's healthy and can provide stability at that center position for the offensive line, really like that for BC, but not crazy, big splashes or anything like that. And for another team that really didn't make a lot of noise in free agency, Calgary Stampeders. This is what they do. They don't want to pay these guys. They always know that there is a cheaper guy out there that they can make just as good, or at least that's the logic. And they are the New England Patriots of the CFL. They won't spend a lot of money. And again, here we are looking at them. I think that the biggest thing that I noticed here is they let Florian Ormelod, I think that's how you say his name, I always struggle with it, they let him depart to the Toronto Argonauts, and then they had Jameer Thurman, who was a linebacker for them, a guy that has played with them for multiple years, that is viewed as one of the better linebackers in the league. They let him go to Hamilton. So I'm not going to say that those are terrible moves for Calgary, because again, I'm a football fan, not a football expert, but I will say letting Thurman go especially seems weird, and I think all around though, they'll probably do just fine without them, because that's Calgary's nature. As for a team a little bit north of them, the Edmonton Elks, they made possibly one of the biggest splashes in free agency, as they got a big fish in Geno Lewis. Lewis signed a 2-year deal with the Elks and is getting paid $320,000 in year 1, which will make him the highest non-quarterback in terms of pay in CFL history. So making over $300,000 a year surely isn't bad, and to get to be that true guy in Edmonton like he was in Montreal, and proving that again, helping out Edmonton's offense, could be really good for his legacy here in our beloved league. And some other moves that I think were interesting here for Edmonton was the fact that they got Stephen Dunbar Jr. They signed him to a 2-year extension, or a 2-year deal, I should say, coming over from Hamilton. He is coming off of a 1,000+ year season and is going to make $200,000 next year. I don't know what the second year looks like for him, but right there you're putting over $500,000 in 2 players for the Elks. But you also know Cornelius and Ford are not on big deals to my knowledge. I cannot remember what Cornelius's contract is, but right now you're looking at that saying they have to produce, because if not, that's a lot of money locked up into 2 guys that are big parts of this team, or expected big parts. And then another thing that I saw, looked like Darrell Walker's time in Edmonton is done. I saw a tweet about that. I think I read an article too. Not surprised there. Walker, of course, had a memorable season. What year was that? Can't remember, but of course a guy that has the potential to be really good, but it just has not worked out again here with Edmonton lately. So for him, when you saw the Lewis and Dunbar Jr. deals, you're probably realizing that somebody's on their way out. Walker looks to be that guy. As for Hamilton, this is a club that was very busy during the offseason. They were, getting Bo Levi Mitchell, but not just that. They were making other moves too. They were able to retain talent, especially on the defensive end. They were able to re-sign Jagera Davis, a guy that they poached from Toronto last offseason. And then they even got a guy like Simone Lawrence again. I know that people don't really like Lawrence and they, feel like maybe he does more harm than good for his team. But Lawrence is a guy that is experienced and has proven at points in his career that he is a very good player. And as long as he's not in the spotlight for bad reasons, is a guy most teams would like to have. I know a lot of people again are going to say, I don't like him because of this. Understandable, but for Hamilton fans, they really like him and they feel like he is a part of this culture and this club that is looking to end their Grey Cup drought. But on top of that, I think for Hamilton, they were able to get new talent too, which was important. We talked about James Butler, a running back that had a really good year for the Lions, had an incredible game one for BC to kick off the 2022 season, but they picked up other names like Jameer Thurman. And this is a club that was able to retain Tim White as well on the offensive side of the ball. Very busy offseason for Hamilton. And I think looking at this club, as long as Bo Levi Mitchell is able to stay healthy, they should be able to improve on that 8-10 record and maybe get back in the thick of it and look back to getting to the Grey Cup for 2023 where they will be hosting it. As for the Montreal Alouettes, a team that we've talked about for a lot of reasons this offseason, some good, some bad. Let's talk about the bad first. The bad is the departure of Geno Lewis, Trevor Harris, Jake Wieneke, and this is kind of a painful offseason for Montreal fans because of this and other reasons, but losing Lewis and Wieneke I think especially hurt because they are guys that have been around for a while and are part of this renaissance for Montreal, and for them losing those guys I feel like is one of those things you look back on and say, man, I wish they would have been able to stay, especially probably Lewis, but the nature of the game is that guys leave and here we are. As for another bad thing, the club is now under CFL ownership. The Stern family, of course, running into some issues of their own. They are going to be looking to, probably stay away from the CFL for a while. I like the fact that Stern tweeted about the team. That was cool to have an owner involved. But I think for Montreal now that they're again under the league's ownership, they're looking to find an owner that is stable and that can kind of just right the ship and keep it even keel for Montreal. This is a area where Quebec, I think, has provided some good youth sports programs and is a place where I think football can thrive, especially at the CFL level. But right now, they really have had a lot of instability over the years, and this is not the club that 10, 15 years ago was regularly going to the Grey Cup and being one of the best teams in the league. This is a club that, yes, they've kind of been average over the years, especially in recent years, not as bad as the mid-2010s. But you're looking at them and saying that they really need to get right, because if they do get it right, I think that this city could thrive for the CFL, but we will see there. But I think for the good part too, you have the signing of Cody Fajardo. Yes, you lost Trevor Harris, but Fajardo is still a guy that is a starting caliber quarterback and is a player that on the right team or in the right situation, scheme, whatever, can be the guy that could lead your team to the playoffs. And for them, losing Trevor Harris, I don't think is as big of a deal as people make it out to be. Harris is a little bit older. If you have an injury to him or, just the wear and tear of the game might be a problem for him. Whereas Fajardo is 6 years younger than him. Yeah, he's a guy that relies on his legs a lot and is coming off of really a subpar season, but again, is looking for just a fresh start. He's even said that. There's articles online about that. And for him and the team, I think that it's not as bad as it seems. You look at the receiving core, and there is no Geno Lewis anymore, that undisputed threat that teams say, hey, we're probably going to have to double cover him. We're going to have to send some inside backer help so he can't get in on those inside routes. And even those 50-50 balls you knew he was going to come away with. But you also look at this, and they got Greg Ellingson, a guy that is a stabilizing presence for teams. Right over the middle, he can catch a ball, he can get you some yards, and he is a player that is experienced and probably a guy that, when healthy, is, I don't know, I'd say at least top 30 receiver in the league. I'd have to look through the names to say top 20, but still, a player that when he's healthy, he's going to have a 100-yard game more often than not, I feel like. On top of that, there are other guys in this receiving core people are sleeping on. You have Kaelon Julian Grant, Tyson Philpott, Reggie White Jr., along with guys like William Stanback, who is going to be running the ball in Fajardo with his two-way game, or his, his multiple assets where he can throw the ball, run the ball. I look at this and think Montreal is not going to be a team that's boring offensively. Hopefully, of course, you have Moss there that is the head coach for the Alouettes, and he has some experience with Cody Fajardo. Maybe they can shake off some of that negativity, and with a group that looks better than people are giving them credit for, I'm really hoping Montreal can be a team people can look at and say, you know what, I don't think that they're as boring or as bad as I expected them to be. Me personally, if Fajardo is clicking and Stanback is healthy, looking at this group, I think that they are plenty capable of making the playoffs. We will see, though, because there are a lot of ifs for the Owls right now that aren't even related to strictly football. So for Ottawa, you have the Red Blacks. They certainly didn't have a bad offseason, and notably, I think one thing we see is them taking a gamble on Shaq Evans. Evans is a guy that, again, one of those riders from 2019, had a lot of success and are one of these players that you're hoping A, can stay healthy, and B, can find that old form. For Ottawa, especially if Jeremiah Masoli is healthy, you're looking at maybe somebody like Evans being a deep ball threat. And we know Masoli has no problem pushing the ball downfield. If this clicks, this could be big for Ottawa. And for the Red Blacks, really, I think their fans could use just a reason to be ecstatic, because since 2018, they really haven't had a lot to be excited about. I think 2023 could be a good year for them, and I'm hoping that's the case. On top of that, they also picked up linebacker Javon Santos-Knox, and Santos-Knox is coming off of a career year. Again, getting better on both sides of the ball is big for any team, and to have a guy that's coming off of a 100+ tackle season could be good. Now, I will say in the CFL world, maybe the 100 tackle mark is not as big of a deal because we don't have those underlying metrics. But if it is, and if he is able to be around the ball and to make big plays for the team defensively, that is good for Ottawa. As for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, another team that we've been talking about extensively this offseason, likely because of the fan base, how big it is, and just in general, the Riders just get a lot more coverage. I feel like there is a lot to talk about. They have departures like Shaq Evans, you have Cody Fajardo, etc., etc. They are guys that left, and we knew that they'd leave because just kind of the situation in Riderland feels a little problematic. Darnell Sankey, who set the season high record for tackles in a season, is possibly not even heading back to the CFL. Was expected to be the second highest paid linebacker in the CFL if he would have accepted a deal with Saskatchewan. He's not coming back. There are some problems that we're looking at right now for a team that just went 6-12, but there are some things that Montreal and Saskatchewan involved kind of did to try to keep this offseason from being a disaster. For Saskatchewan, Trevor Harris was a guy they picked up, and it seems like the consensus, you get an experienced quarterback that's been in the Grey Cup. Maybe things can get better from here. Moss is gone. Fajardo, for all his highs, had some lows, especially in the back end of his time with the Riders. Maybe, just maybe, Harris, who is a guy that maybe could, come in and make things better, maybe gets the ball a little bit quicker. That's kind of been the idea here, and can handle the market a little bit more for Saskatchewan. Could be a good thing for them. On top of that, you have Jake Wieneke, who is coming over again from Montreal, and he is a player that is looking to redeem himself. Was viewed as one of the better receivers in the league a couple of years ago, and it seems like injuries have really struggled to keep him or allow him to be one of the best players again for his position. Good thing for him in Saskatchewan. Him and Harris have some chemistry, considering that they both played at Montreal. We'll have to see how that goes. Again, the Riders could be a dumpster fire, or they could be a redemption story, and I guess we'll get to see early on what's going to happen there. I think if Wieneke and Harris are struggling, that's probably an indication that the team is struggling. We will see, but this fan base deserves more. They deserve better, and all around, I'm hoping they're not, the worst team in the West, but I guess we will see. As for the champions of the 2022 season, Toronto Argonauts. The Argos, of course, made a lot of moves before free agency to keep their Grey Cup core together, and they did make one notable signing, though, I will say, in free agency, that being Florian Mermelade. And the 27-year-old is coming off of a 6-sack season with the Calgary Stampeders, a guy that I watched, against the BC Lions, and I thought impressed me quite a bit. Toronto, all around, you look at this offseason and you look at free agency and you say, oh, maybe it wasn't as busy. You really have to look at what they did before free agency to get Wynton McManus and Daniels and Curly Gittens Jr. and Boris Beatty, all these guys, etc., etc. They were able to keep the core together and then make some moves to where they feel like this team is good enough to get back to the Grey Cup. I don't know if they will, and I think the biggest question now is concerning quarterback. And you look at the fact that they didn't re-sign MBT because he's not sure if he's going to retire. That means that at the moment, Chad Kelly looks to be the starter for this upcoming season. I don't know how that'll go for the Argos in this campaign. Worst comes to worst, the closer they get to the season, Dane Evans is still out there. He's still on Hamilton's roster. Maybe, just maybe, they could make a move to try to get him if they weren't sure if Kelly was ready. I kind of like the idea of getting any veteran guy to be there just in case Kelly struggles early on, but I also like the idea of Kelly being able to kind of get some reps underneath him and to see if he is the future for the Argos. But that's that there. And as for Winnipeg, the Blue Bombers, again, kind of like Toronto, you look at their list and you're not going to say, wow, they had a busy free agency period, because they really didn't for the most part, but they were very, very busy right after the season. Probably one of the busiest teams overall and early on, where they retained key talent and guys that have been there for a while that are stars that could have gone elsewhere, but instead they ended up staying with Winnipeg. Why? Because they know they have one of the best, if not the best, chances of winning the Grey Cup again, third time in 4 seasons. And I think for the team, they understand that they are still the quietest of the league. They ended up getting Kenny Lawler from Edmonton, a guy that signed a 1-year deal with them. He is returning back to the Peg, and that's not a big deal. They let Ellingson go, again, because of injuries and age, but they get back Lawler. If Schoen returns, which he probably will, you're looking at the receiving core that features some other guys too, and Brady Oliveira, Johnny Augustine, etc. This group is still very, very good. And the free agency didn't have to be super busy for them because they took care of business in-house and then got a shiny piece in Kenny Lawler again. We will see, though. What did you think for free agency? Who won the most during free agency? Who was the winner before free agency? Probably like a team like Toronto or Winnipeg, where they're able to keep a lot of these guys. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Again, sorry for not posting a video in over 2 weeks. More videos will be coming, hopefully at least 2 a week. And then as the regular season kicks off, it'll be 3 a week. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Everybody, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night.